It's going to hell in a handbasket. You got injuries, substance abuse, misjudgment, miscalculations. It's embarrassing. Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, that might be the nail in the coffin of the Yankees season. Carlos Rodon going back to the IL in mid-August for the Yankees with a hamstring pull. We'll kind of get into the ramification of that as the Yankees kind of can try to hold on to some hope of getting into the wild card. And of course, we have to discuss the misdiagnosis of Anthony Rizzo. Turns out, he probably did suffer a concussion. We had that collision for Tatis, but how did it take this long to the Yankee doctors even find it out? And of course, we got more fallout from the whole Domingo Germán situation. Again, it was possibly a little bit more than just bad deodorant, which we kind of made fun of last time. So get into all this stuff, a lot of crazy stuff. This seems like this Yankee organization right now is going to hell in a handbasket, so we'll cover everything. But before we do, as mentioned, plenty of baseball still left, so make sure, if you haven't done yet, go to the place wherever you get your podcast. If you listen to Rogan or this or that or whatever where you get your favorite podcast, look up Section 420 Talkin Yankees. Get subscribed, be a follower, get notified when new content goes up. Again, do little wrap-ups after each little series, little Yankee stories, all cool stuff, but you got to be a podcast subscriber to do so. And again, you get to hear my voice a lot more often, so why not? So the Yankees find themselves in immense danger, if that's even a word, of not making the playoffs for the first time since 2016 season. Just with Carlos Rodon going down, as we kind of mentioned in the last episode, the Yankees hope, any hope for the Yankees getting into the postseason was going to have to be through the wild card, and you need to be top heavy there in the rotation. Going with Garrett Cole, again, having a good season for the Yankees, possible Cy Young Award contender for the American League. And if you could have had sort of a good, strong Rendon on the other side, you get two hard throwers there leading the whole team, even though it's not really the greatest team overall. That can be a formula to get you into playoffs, and then once you're in there, anything can happen. And I've kind of, and again, if you reason why you wanted to subscribe to the podcast, like I mentioned earlier, I kind of likened Cole and Rendon to maybe being Schilling and Randy Johnson back for the 2001 Diamondbacks. And, I'm not saying that, Cole and Rendon are as good as Schilling and, Randy Johnson. I mean, those two I don't know Schilling's name, but those two are definite Hall of Famers there. But this goes to show, because that 2001 Diamondback team wasn't exactly great. You just had those two horses at the top there and able to finally knock out, the Yankee dynasty there, prevent the Yankees from winning 4 in a row. So, again, if you have two good starters like that, like Cole and Rendon, and if they could pitch that effectively, they could take a Yankee team, which, as we all know, this 2023 Yankee team, not good at all, really, just, with the offensive problems, and even the bullpen now has been spotty lately. But if you have two guys there at the top, they could kind of overcome a lot of obstacles. But now the fact that Rendon's down, it really hampers the Yankees to be able to, make a really strong push. I know they got Nestor Cortez back, which we'll cover. That's great, but I just don't think it's enough, because even though Nestor Cortez is back, he still needs some a couple more starts to build up his arm strength, where he could be a guy out there to go 6-7 innings like that. And I just don't know if it's there. Maybe he re-aggravates something. Again, he's kind of had a weird season. Kind of started off with the groin injury to start the season, and then of course more recently came off a shoulder issue. Again, it was great in the first game, and his first game back, and we'll cover that. But just with Cole and him, it's just not enough, because you just look at the rest of the rotation there. It's just too much uncertainty. I mean, you have Severino, who just continues to get clobbered, especially in the first inning there, and he's just become a mystery. Germán is gone for the season, and we kind of mentioned in the last episode. We'll dive into that a little deeper, and actually kind of really took a dark turn, the whole thing there. So you can't. He's gone. You have Clark Schmidt, and look, he's had a good season. He's been gritty. I think he took a good step this season. But look, he is what he is. At best, he's a 4th or 5th starter who's going to only maybe just get you 5 innings, if that. That's not a guy that's going to drive the team to the playoffs. And then that last spot, we don't even know who it is. I mean, it could be Johnny Brito, maybe Randy Vasquez, but again, that's not a championship or even a playoff caliber rotation there. So Rendon going down, that was a big blow for the Yankees. Again, more than likely, that could have been the nail in the coffin for the season, for them to have any hope to get into the wild card. Right now, there's about 5 games out. Again, still a lot of baseball left, but things are really getting gloomy. Of course, you can't even dream of the AL East, and that ship sailed about a month or two ago, but now they're about 12 games out, so that ship is completely sailed. There's no way. I think even the Rays and the Orioles even purposely throw games. There's no way for the Yankees to get the AL East, so that's just gone. The only sliver of hope was getting one of those 3 wild card spots, but just the way this team's playing right now, and without Rendon, that looks pretty much bleak at this moment. And this all came, I would almost call it the Yankees' last stand. It was really the home stand at home, where you had the 3 games against Tampa and the 4 games against the Houston Astros, and that those 7 games were really was going to make and break the Yankees season. And you just saw the way they showed up is pretty much reminiscent of how they were the whole season. And those first 2 Tampa games were absolutely lackluster. I mean, they scored like 1 run in the first game, 2 runs in the second game. Third game, okay, great, wowie, they won because you had Cole in your mound, your ace, and they beat McClanahan, who I guess the only bright spot for this Yankee season so far, they beat McClanahan twice this season. Other than that, you're disappointed in the Tampa series. Then Houston comes to town, and that series showed a little bit of promise. I mean, the Yankees gritted out the first game there with good effort there by Clark Schmidt. And actually, the Yankees actually, going toe-to-toe with Christian Javier, who's dominated the Yankees. Again, he was part of that, combined perfect game last season that Houston threw at the Yankees. And, of course, Javier pretty much shut the Yankees down without breaking a sweat in the playoffs. So good to see the Yankees at bats get to them. Took a 3-1 lead. They ended up blowing that lead. Eventually going to win the game 4-3 there. So you're happy to get a win like that. And even Nestor Cortez's debut was against Justin Verlander. Again, Verlander just traded for the Mets, and the Yankees in a Houston uniform almost never beat Verlander. And actually went toe-to-toe with him. Didn't beat him up, but actually got a 3-1 win, including a home run from Jake Bauers off him there. And it was good to see the Yankees outpitch Houston, outpitch Verlander, and this was all in Cortez's debut there. So there were some bright spots of that Houston series there. And I think if the Yankees could have pulled off that final game, the win there, I think it would have changed everything. But no, it was just bad for so many reasons. Not only because the Yankees ended up losing Carlos Rendon in that game, and he wasn't affected at all. Ended up giving up a 3-run home run, then a 2-run home run, and then eventually in the third inning, his left hamstring, I guess he said it tightened up on him, or he felt it grab on him. They had to take him out of the game. And that was a symbolic of just pretty much the whole season right there. Now the Yankees did fight back to tie the game eventually. Would end up losing, and unfortunately, in the ninth inning, he had a shot there. Had 2 runners on with Stanton up, and Stanton put a pretty good swing on the ball, but ended up just being a fly out to center field there. But again, just missed a home run. So it's everything about that game, from losing Rendon, losing the game, and then in that series itself, the Yankees took 2 games apiece against Houston, which again, normally if you have 4 games against Houston, you would sign up for that. Hey, look, as long as we don't get embarrassed, or if we could just do 2-2, we'll do that. But just for the fact the Yankees were up 2-1 in that series, and then only drop that series, but then lose Carlos Rendon. And again, from that point on, you're probably looking at that homestand would probably broke the Yankee season right there. The Tampa one maybe could have gotten over there, but Houston, that one, and plus losing Carlos Rendon, that pretty much, I think, pretty signed, sealed, deliver this Yankee season, and that they're probably not going to make the playoffs now. So again, they're going to fight the rest of the way, and the schedule, it's kind of up and down a little bit, but they needed that series there, and they need to Carlos Rendon for the rest of the way, but he's not there. He'll come back probably sometime in late August and early September. I just don't know if it's enough time left at that point. If this Yankee team is, again, they continue to struggle to score runs, but now you've got to the point where you have a weak starting rotation, and in the bullpen's real spotty. Wandy Peralta got roughed up a little bit in that Houston series as well, which is uncanny of him. Usually, he's pretty reliable there. So if you even got to the point where the bullpen's not holding up, the Yankees really have some serious problems. And again, this is Rendon. Just been a miserable season for him. Again, he got hurt with the UCL in spring training. They pretty much, we only saw him maybe about a month ago. He made his debut. He's been up and down a little bit. Had that bad incident out in Los Angeles. We had to blow kisses to the fans. And then, all right, you had a good game against the Mets at home like that. But then after that, hasn't been good. Now he's hurt again, and it's been miserable for him. This guy, this is a guy, again, the Yankees spent $162 million for this guy there. He was supposed to be that, the bedrock right behind Cole there, and it's just been a big disappointment. Now, I've heard some comparisons to him and Carl Pavano. I'm not going to go there. Because Carl Pavano is just complete, at least I think Rendon cares. He wants to play, he wants to be on the field. Just if you're hurt, you're hurt. That's one thing. Carl Pavano was just a complete goof, and he didn't even try to compete. He didn't even try to get on the field until his final season there in 2007 when his contract was up. So I wouldn't put the comparison with him, Carl Pavano, there, but again, a huge disappointment. And the frustration is clearly, just laying all over the whole team, especially Aaron Boone. Of course, in the trip to Chicago there in that first game, I'm sure you saw it. Boone getting thrown out for the 7th time this season. Again, Boone's done that a lot, mainly because the Yankees are struggling. So who knows if it's a bit of an act of fire up. But at the time, the Yankees were down 5-1 and looking kind of lackluster. So, again, it was an 8th inning, so I don't think it was an opportunity where it was going to fire up the team. They were going to score 4 runs, in the top of the 9th. But nevertheless, of course, arguing balls a strike with umpire Lance Diaz. And of course, Boone came on, did his theatrics of the thing, and did the whole, mock punch out of Lance Diaz there. And I don't know, it's just given the fact that the way the Yankees, heading in the wrong direction. A lot of things going wrong. Had that bad homestand against Tampa and Houston. Usually I'm okay with Boone's antics, and so I think it's kind of funny, but I just think that one was just too over the top. And even he saw himself, he was laughing, he was going back to the dugout, and I just think it was a bad look, just given what's going on with this team. Again, you just get the news that you're going to lose Rendon now for a couple of weeks there. So I don't know. I'm okay. Yeah, I like. Yeah, we all like when Boone goes out there. We've seen him do all sorts of stuff and throwing the gum and this and that. And he has all the theatrics. But this particular time, just given the fact just coming off that bad homestand against Tampa and Houston to do that, I just think it was a bad look for him. And it kind of that image you're going to see is probably going to sum up what's going to be the 2023 Yankee season. Of course, we can look back. Of course, you look to 2001. You have, of course, the Jeter flip play. You look at that moment. You look at 2003. The game against the AL. CS, when after Boone hit that game-winning home run off of Wakefield, and of course we all see that image of Mariano dropping to his knees on the pitcher's mound there. So you have these iconic image of certain years. Of course, 1996, Wade Boggs in the back of the horse after they win the World Series. So you have these images. So when you think of 2023, you're going to think of that image of this Boone doing this. Of course, mentioned at the top that now Nestor Cortez is back, but of course, it doesn't really feel that well because as soon as he's come back, Rendon's gone, so I feel like you really didn't add anything. You want at least 3 guys at the top there that can be reliable now, but now it's just going to be Cole and Nestor as you kind of your steady eddies the rest of the way there. But Nestor Cortez was brilliant in his first game back and only went in 4 innings against Houston with 8 strikeouts and kind of was the vintage Nestor, was doing all the sidearm and the funky stuff, and he actually looked better than he did early in the season. So maybe that shoulder was kind of bothering even early on in the season. Was this more than this is groin there, so that was well. And of course the Yankees, again, one of the reasons they didn't go too crazy with the trade deadline is that they knew they were getting an arm back in Jonathan Loaisiga, so he rejoins the club now. In order to make room for Loaisiga on the 40-man roster, the Yankees had to say goodbye on DFA David Garcia, and he's been with the Yankee organization for a couple of years there, and it never really seemed like he had some problems there, but never really worked out. So I guess to make room for Loaisiga, they put him on the waivers, so we'll see what happens with him now. He's only 24 years old, so possibly someone will want to take a stab at him. But as the Yankees and Aaron Boone mentioned, that he just kind of had a mix of problems. Some of it just inconsistency, some of it injury-wise. I don't think the Yankees ever gave him a really great chance there. But so far this season, though, in 28 appearances in AAA, was pitching to a 5.76 ERA. So not exactly, you're struggling in there at AAA, really no justification to bring him up here into the majors there. Now, he did have 2 appearances this season, including a 3-out save back in May when the Yankees were kind of a little bit more relevant. But never got a great chance. The Yankees used him a lot more in 2020. He had 6 starts there to an ERA of 4.98. Again, not terrific, but he was, considered, back then at least a top 100 prospect in baseball there. But it just never really panned out for him. Probably, which I guess his Yankee glory, or what you'll remember him for, was that 2020 series against the Tampa Bay Rays. There, I believe it was Game 2, where the Yankees got a little bit cute. They started him to start the game. Now, he gave up a home run early to Randy Arozarena, who just wrecked the Yankees during the whole series, including Cole. And then they took him out after the first inning to go with J.A. Happ, or J-Happ, or whatever he called himself back in the day there. And he went the rest of the way. And that was just a disaster there. I mean, the Yankees ended up losing that game, and it was just embarrassing. The Yankees were trying to get cute. Again, that's stuff that Tampa does. They bring up an opener, and then they switch up pitches on you and all that stuff. But to do that during a playoff game, the whole deal like that was just, that completely backfired on the Yankees. And really, if you look that 2020 season from on, it's really been downhill for the Yankee organization. Yeah, they made the playoffs every year after that, but that game 1, you had Cole on the mound, they beat Tampa, have a 1-0 lead in the series there, and they pull that stunt, and then the Yankees will salvage another game later on and take it to a Game 5, but they would eventually lose Game 5 there. But that moment there with David Garcia and J. Happ there, really ever since then, it's been all downhill. And probably, again, if you look back with David Garcia, you're just going to remember that moment there. And, for him, hopefully that's not him. Again, he's 24 years old, so hopefully someone picks him up and maybe gets another chance somewhere like, Milwaukee. Now, there's rumors that, at the trade deadline, both Hal Steinbrenner and Cashman had different visions of what they want to do with the team. And what we hear that, of course, Cashman probably being a little bit more realistic about things, wanted to be a seller, whereas Steinbrenner wanted to stand pat and go forward. Now, at the time, again, this is before the Rondon injury, I would say that, yes, I think Hal Steinbrenner was right, made the right call at that time, even though Cashman, again, he's deeper into his team, he's looking at the X's and O's and sees, look, he probably sees his roster just completely flawed. So, hey, look, let's just sell some guys, get some prospects, and retool for the future there. But if Hal Steinbrenner, I can understand his point. I think he made the right call in this standing pat there. Now, look, we knew they were going to bring anyone in. I kind of predicted that. Again, I figured at best, maybe a bullpen arm and maybe a catcher since the fact they lost Trevino. It would have been nice to get someone like Bellinger, but again, as soon as the Cubs got hot a little bit, he kind of came off the board there. And then I just don't think the Yankees were going to add a lot of money. I just saw the fact that, look, we're investing in this team. We got Judge back. We got Nestor Cortez and Loaiza coming around the corner. We'll finally have everyone back, and let's just roll with that. But of course, once Rendon went down with the hamstring, that kind of just threw a wedge in the whole thing there. Now, obviously, Hal Steinbrenner didn't predict that Rendon was going to go down in 2 weeks. So I think Hal Steinbrenner made the right call at the time. I mean, and just look, he has $360 million invested in Aaron Judge, $160 million invested in Rendon at the time, and plus, look, he just did this deal a couple weeks ago with Star Insurance. I mean, they're paying you $20 million a season to put the patch on their arm there. They don't want advertise on a team that's just tanking it for the rest of the season, selling off there. So a lot of pressure on Hal Steinbrenner at the point. And plus, look, hey, he's got the rest of the season. Yes, I'm sure he wants the ballpark filled up, people coming in. I know it's Yankee Stadium, and the Yankee fans are great, and they'll come like that. But of course, it's a buzz kill if the Yankees just would have been sellers at the trade deadline there. So that's what Hal Steinbrenner is thinking about more like that. Cashman, of course, is just thinking about retooling the team. Who can I get? What prospect they get returned? Pay, who's making what payroll? Who can I get off? What prospect they get, and all that stuff. So that's what he's thinking there. But you understand. But I think Hal took the right position there, but unfortunately, they all blew him in the face. Now, let's just say at the time or before the trade deadline, if Rendon went down like this and it was more than this 15-day IL, then maybe Hal would have given it to Cashman and say, all right, be more of a seller. And again, they could have gotten something for someone like a Harrison Beta, who's, again, pretty good center fielder defensively, and he's back healthy, and he's a free agent after the season there, so he'll be a rental. You could have gotten something for Gleyber Torres, even though he has 1 year left on his arbitration contract, but, up to 18 home runs for the season, and you can't really call the guy a bum. I mean, look, he puts up his stats there, so he's just not really like a leader that takes a team on the back like someone like a Judge could do. But nevertheless, Gleyber could bring you something back, and you could have gotten something back for someone like Wandy Peralta or King or a Holmes. So Yankees did have tradable pieces that they could have got some prospects back. But again, at the time, with all the money invested in the team, I can understand Hal Steinbrenner putting his foot down and say, no, let's just get these guys. We got paying them. Let's just go forward with this team. But unfortunately, now with the Rendon hamstring injury, that's just all gone to waste. And if you look at this organization, I know they try hard, they pay money, they spend money, and they try to put up a good product on the field. But let's just look back what's going on the last couple of seasons with this organization, and you're just seeing a lot of miscalculations, misjudgments, just bad ideas, and it's just going from the top and filtering all down. And of course, now the latest is with Anthony Rizzo. Put on the 10-day IL for a concussion protocol. We all knew something was wrong with the guy, and of course, this all goes back to when he had that collision at first base with Fernando Tatis Jr. Again, on a pickoff play there, and again, Tatis Jr. hit Rizzo in the head there. Again, nothing intentional. Again, Rizzo's out a couple days after that, but I guess they ran him through the test. They didn't pick up on anything, but look. There was something wrong with the guy, clearly. I mean, he went like 50 games and only hit 1 home run after that. So something's wrong with the guy, and it's a little bit more than just a slump. Now, look, you can say, it's partially Rizzo's fault as well. Like, he's in his body. He should know. He should report this. But again, more recently, he came out and said, hey, look, I feel a little foggy-headed. I feel a little cloudy-headed. And I guess they ran up through a battery test and figured, look, he may have been concussed from that. And we've seen these things go with the past with the Yankees. Remember, Clint Frazier a couple of seasons ago had this, where it just never went away. Kind of almost cost him a season and maybe cost his career, just because again he never really got his career off the ground with the Yankees like that. And now with Rizzo, it just goes back to everything. How did they not pick this up way sooner? And you just look at some of the injuries with the Yankees. Of course, we had the whole off-season issue with Frankie Montas. Again, the Yankees trade for him. I guess they picked him nothing up on the physical and they brought him in. Turns out he had a bad shoulder. Then you go a whole off season, do nothing about it. He shows up to spring training. Then they check it again. All right, you need surgery. It's like, you didn't pick up on this sooner. And then even Lou Trevino came over, and again, wasn't hurt at the time, but he's someone who never able to pitch this season because he needed Tommy John surgery. Then of course they brought Scott Efros in last season. No one saw anything wrong with him. He needed to be shut down. He needed Tommy John surgery. And of course you bring in Benintendi, who would have been great for the Yankees last season. He's in for a cup of coffee, and then he has this bizarre wrist injury. He's done for the year. So I just don't know what's going on. Is that a medical staff thing? Is that a Cashman thing? I mean, how are they not catching these situations with these guys like this, with all these injuries? And again, this has been going back for years with the Yankees the past couple of seasons, and now more recently with Rizzo, who, it's a shame because he did get off a good start to the season. He was a 300 hitter. He was getting off gate, hitting home runs. I mean, he was a little bit more excitable than Judge at one point, but then, of course, ever since that collision, hasn't been the same. And again, give him a little breather, a couple of weeks with the IL there. But if he comes back, who knows what shape he's going to be. And again, these concussion things are very tricky. We saw how long it took Clint Frazier kind of get his marbles in line here. And you just look at the Yankees, and of course, he's a big cog. He's going to one of the main reasons that the Yankees have been down the offense this season. He hasn't been able to contribute. Not totally his fault. As this thing, they should have been able to diagnose this because that collision happened back in late May. So you're catching this 2 months later there. So really bizarre to see him. Again, as I mentioned at the top, hell in a handbasket and a lot of stuff going on. You want to look at DJ LeMay, who was having a poor season, and you look like that decision he had to not get the surgery on the foot instead of go for physical therapy rehab was probably the wrong call. And I'm sure after the season is done, I'm sure that they're going to have to announce he's going to need the surgery because I don't know what to explain him like hitting the way 230 hit. He should not be doing that. Again, something might be wrong. Again, just on his foot there, he just can't get planted the right way and can't get his swing down. Been fine, okay defensively, not bad there, but his hasn't been the same hitter. And of course, you look at Stanton, also definitely hurt. And of course, he saw embarrassingly in that Saturday game against Houston getting gunned down by a mile, where he didn't attempt to run or accelerate like that. He was basically slow walking home because this guy can't even move. And I understand he wants to take precaution because early in the season, he had the hamstring injury, which one of the first big blows of this Yankees season right there early on. And so I'm sure he doesn't want to re-aggravate anything, but it just goes to show he's probably hurt. Now, he's been hitting his home runs, so you can't really call him a bust, but Donaldson was doing the same thing. But again, he's kind of home run or nothing, and that's kind of been Stanton's thing. But you guys probably figure Stanton's lower half isn't there, and it probably explains why he's struggling to even reach 200 in his batting average there. So I'm sure he just can't wait for the season to end. He's just going to need to wrap his legs in ice the entire offseason. So a lot of mismanagement by the Yankees, miscalculations. DJ probably should have had that surgery on his foot, and even if it delayed the start of the 2023 season, it probably would have been better than what he is right now. He's probably struggling with it, so he's probably have to get it during his off season, and probably then what that's going to do is probably delay his start for the 2024 season. And the calamity doesn't stop there. Of course, now we're getting more news what happened with Domingo Germán. Of course, remember, they had that bizarre start to the, he didn't start getting out of the bullpen for that first game against Tampa. Again, he was scratched from the start. They started Johnny Brito, and then they had Germán warming up in the bullpen. You're like, wait a second, I thought he was scratched for an issue, but I guess he was healthy enough to go out of the bullpen. So you weren't sure what it was. Now we figured maybe Germán might have been part of some sort of trade deal. Again, that was a game before the trade deadline that I guess Cashman was holding him, and maybe you figure, all right, well, the trade fell through, so all right, put Germán there in the game. That was one thing. And then afterwards, the excuse was that he had a little basically got a bad rash, which we covered in the previous episode from using a deodorant. I guess his body rejected. He had some lumps on his armpit there, and he figured, well. But during the day, he got better, so he was able to pitch. So, all right, it's kind of believable there. But then you get this news that he needed to report because for substance abuse and had to be removed from the team there. And he was like, whoa, this is kind of out of left field there. So it all is kind of bizarre. So you figure maybe it was a personal issue. I remember the Yankees had this back in 2015. CC Sabathia had that. He had a couple of incidents. He had that bizarre instance where he got a fight in some nightclub in Toronto, and it was like his entourage had to pull him out. Then we heard there might have been a domestic dispute issue at home, and then of course he had to remove himself from the team and get himself into treatment there. And then when CC, good for him, actually came back in 2016, reinvented himself, and he actually extended his career by a couple of years. Kind of became more of an independent finesse pitcher later in the year. As for Germán, we figure, all right, he reported nothing crazy, but then of course shortly afterwards, turned out there was a bit of an explosion in the Yankee clubhouse. Now this is according to reports that he showed up to the clubhouse apparently semi or fully intoxicated, had an altercation with some teammates, including the manager Aaron Boone. Now Boone denied this; he didn't want to give comment on it. But then you hear other reports that he might have broken a TV, he might have flipped a couch over. They had to call down Yankee security, and I guess they kind of grabbed him, threw him in the sauna there, and I guess with the steam, let him dry himself out a little bit, calm himself down, and they had security escort him out there. So things just really got out of control there with Germán, which it's just kind of bizarre. He's had a decent season, you would say, overall. I know he had. Only negative really got caught once because with the substance on his arm, on his finger, with that whole issue like that. But overall, more of a decent season for him. Had the perfect game, of course, which probably might be the highlight of his career. And had up and down as a starter, but not a situation where I don't think he was going to lose a spot in rotation. And I don't know what's going on with him. It's stopping at home, but nevertheless, showed up like that condition. Had to be removed from the team. And again, Cashman said he's done for the season, and I think he's pretty much done with the Yankees. I just don't know how you come back from that. This is not the first big blow with him. We remember back in 2018, had a domestic dispute situation where MLB had to suspend him for 80 games. Then had the bizarre incidents down in the Dominican Republic. Not sure if he was driving a passenger. He was in a car that flipped over. And now, of course, you have this situation with this. So seems, whether it's substance abuse, alcohol, there's a lot of craziness with Herman there. And again, I honestly don't know how you come back from that. So you probably see his last. He was probably got that. I guess that deodorant game against Tampa will probably be his final game as a New York Yankee. A great, you're always going to remember back the perfect game against the Oakland A's there, but just really a bizarre situation. And again, it gives you what's going on with this Yankee organization. Early this season, we had Jimmy Cordero had to be removed from the team, suspended because a domestic issue there involving a child abuse, which I don't even want to know about. So, like, what's going on in the clubhouse? What's going on in the organization? What type of people they bringing in here? I just can't imagine this happening with, like, the Yankees of the Tory years. Like, if you had people in the clubhouse like Derek Jeter, Paul O'Neill, David Cohn, I couldn't imagine things like that happening. So it just goes to show. I mean, even Jeter, even being a younger player than David Wells, David Wells showed up, a Yankee player, for dropping a ball out there in Baltimore, and put his hands over his head. And then after the game, because infamously Jeter went up to David Wells and said, "Hey, look, we don't do that here." It's like a leadership thing. Now, I think Judge is a good leader, is a captain, and all that stuff there, but again, what's going on in the front office and what's going on in this clubhouse and with all this stuff, there's a lot of shenanigans. There's a lot of negativity around this team. Now, I guess it could be worse elsewhere. Now, new Yankee pitcher who they got during the trade deadline, Kenyon Middleton. He had some comments for his former team, the Chicago White Sox. So, again, they were supposed to be contenders in the AL Central this season. Didn't work out the way, and they got like 20 games under 500. He claims that there's no rules in terms of, he mentioned that rookies sleeping in the bullpen, players missing meetings, pitchers missing fielding drills there. And he was just dying to get out of it. And he actually said that once he heard it was going to the Yankees, he went right to the razor right away and shaved his beard, of course, with the Yankee facial hair protocol there. So he was someone who's dying to come to this Yankee team there, but I don't know what you're really coming into, because it doesn't seem like there's any rules here either. So whether you like or hate Commissioner Rob Manfred, well, you're just going to have to put up with him for another 6 years. Signed an extension of his contract through January 2029. I don't even want to look that far ahead. He will continue to be the commissioner of baseball there. Now, look, you can have mixed feelings on him because we know what he's done to the game. He's changed a lot of the rules. Of course, we have all the stuff with the pitch clock and the minimum batters of bullpen got thrown out, and kind of realignment of the schedule and all this stuff. Whether you like it or not, it seems to have improved baseball. I mean, TV ratings are up, attendance is up according to baseball, as well as social media engagement. And of course, now you got the integration of these streaming platforms. I'm sure you know as a Yankee fan and you hate them, such as Apple and Amazon, but nevertheless, all kicked up with Rob Manfred. So revenue is up, and of course, we saw even at the beginning of the season the big boost that baseball got with the World Baseball Classic. So look, whether you like him or hate him, you got to put that on Rob Manfred, that look, it's all happened under his watch. He changed his rules, and just seemingly fans are liking the game a little bit more. So I guess the owners rewarded him with this extension. Now, look, you can mix a lot of things out. You can say, hey, look, it's a couple of years after COVID. Now people are more comfortable coming out and going to big crowds. There's a lot of it too, but it's probably more that they speeded up the game a little bit with the pitch clock. Again, a lot of these games go quick, especially you got two starters out there that are dealing. These games are over like 2.5 hours, which again, for a TV audience is much more viewable, and it makes you less likely to open up the phone and start looking at like Facebook. So, there's been kind of a miserable season for the Yankees, and a lot of the Yankees played. Not a lot of bright spot, but I guess this has been a negative episode. We should spring a little positivity as we close out here in the ninth inning, and that's Isaiah Kiner-Falefa for IKF, better known as IKF. You look at his season there. I mean, it was easy for him to just completely sulk. Just look at the journey he's had. Loses his starting job to Anthony Volpe. Really nowhere to put him because you had Donaldson there at third base, but he took a glove out there, learned to play some center field. Now you also seen him in the left field for the Yankees. Played third base once Donaldson went down, and of course you've seen him pitch in some of these blowout games. So he's been Mr. Utility Man, the jack of all trades. And again, one of the feel-good stories of this Yankees season. In fact, he was happy to be with the team still, learning that he was involved in any trade deals. Supposedly shouted out in glee in the clubhouse there. So you look at his stats, not just blow you away, but from going to nothing, 250, 6 home runs, 29 RBIs, 9 stolen bases. Again, kind of do it all for the New York Yankees, and this one of the few bright spots of this kind of miserable team.